It's Sunday, the 3rd of October. Good morning. Our main story today, Conservative MPs and party members are gathering in Manchester for the start of their annual conference, with the Prime Minister insisting that the UK cannot return to relying on low-paid immigrants to fill crucial jobs like driving fuel tankers and food lorries.
The government has issued 5,000 temporary visas for foreign drivers, but Boris Johnson says the long-term solution is higher wages to attract and retain more British drivers. It is part of his plan to rebuild the country after the pandemic. Here's our political correspondent, Ian Watson.
Getting on with the job, that's one of the Conservative conference slogans, an attempt to portray the Prime Minister as a man of action. The other, more familiar slogan is Build Back Better. Boris Johnson insists that after the pandemic, life won't just return to normal, but will be much improved. And for him, every cloud has a silver lining. He says he wants to see a high-wage and high-skill economy, and much-in-demand HGV drivers could be the first to benefit.
What we don't want to do is go back to a situation in which we basically allowed the road haulage industry to be sustained with a lot of low-wage immigration. That meant that wages didn't go up and facilities, standards, the quality of the job didn't go up. So the weird thing is now that people don't want to go in to the road haulage industry, don't want to be lorry drivers, precisely because we've had that massive immigration approach and held wages down and held the quality of the job down.
But businesses see rain clouds over his sunlit uplands. Some companies are worried that higher wages will lead to higher costs and higher prices. There won't be too many detailed policy announcements this week. The conference will be more about the direction of travel. But travel isn't exactly straightforward at the moment, with fuel still difficult to obtain in some parts of the country. And soon families will be facing higher energy bills and higher taxes. So some Conservative MPs who won seats from Labour in 2019 are less concerned with a vision for the future and more worried about the here and now. But there will be an announcement that will please the party's grassroots. Assuming you actually managed to fill your fuel tank, you might have been unlucky enough to fall victim to climate change protests, which have closed the M25. So the Prime Minister and Home Secretary will announce tough new laws, which could see protesters go to prison for 6 months or face unlimited fines. This week, the Prime Minister will seek to reassure his party members that his priorities are those of the voters and that he's prepared to take what he describes as big, bold decisions to deliver on them. Ian Watson, BBC News, Manchester.
Well, one of the advantages of having a conference here is that our chief political correspondent, Adam Fleming, is here with us in the studio. Morning. It's
Morning.
So great to actually be able to talk to you on the sofa.
Well, no, and it's even if this conference is really boring in terms of news stories, I've got to do this, so it's already
Here is the
great.
news story. Here is the headline. You've had a busy week last week. What are you expecting from today?
So if you go past the conference centre, which is about to open, there's a big banner on the outside that says, getting on with the job. So I think the theme that Boris Johnson wants to just suggest is that he's going to come up with loads of ideas. And what we will be watching out, you're checking to see how many words that is.
Normally it's only 3.
Yeah, that's a much longer slogan than we're used to from Boris Johnson. I mean, the big jargon phrase that the Conservatives are using all the time at the moment is levelling up. This idea that you make every part of the country feel as successful, wealthy, exciting as every other part of the country. But there aren't a lot of policies or a lot of details or a lot of things that they've actually pledged to do that could make that happen. So that's what everyone's going to be watching out for this week.
And this is going to be a theme this week, isn't it? We're going to hear this levelling up phrase, I think, quite a lot. What does that mean for people in Scotland and Cornwall?
Well, precisely. I mean, you've got devolution. So in Scotland, it's Nicola Sturgeon that's levelling up Scotland. There was an interview with Michael Gove in The Sun on Saturday, and he said, actually, the key thing for him will be that when somebody grows up, do they have to leave their local area to get a job? So he's like, you shouldn't have to leave the place you love to live the life you want. Now, that is quite a big, ambitious goal, and it's all about what are the policies that you put in place to mean that can happen. And also, to me, that sounds like something that you won't be able to measure for maybe 10 years. There might be an election in 2 years. And also, the whole thing about these conferences is you have what's happening inside and what the parties want to do, and then you have what's happening outside. And so one of the things that's happening outside is these protests from Insulate Britain, blocking the M25 and the road from the port of Dover. So one of the announcements today is new legislation that would criminalise those protests even more, and you could actually end up in jail if that's the sort of thing you're doing.
And all this is set against a backdrop of the fuel problems we've had this week, still a big issue around London and the South East. Shortage of lorry drivers, which is starting to have an impact on all sorts of areas of life. So, they've got, it's all well and good talking in the bubble, in the conference hall, but a lot of people are having a tough time.
And plenty of other things happening that people will feel in their real lives. On Friday, the energy price cap went up to reflect the fact that energy on global markets is costing more for the energy firms. On Wednesday, when Boris Johnson is doing his big conference speech at the lectern, that's the day the £20 temporary increase to universal credit actually ends. People won't feel that instantly and it'll filter through the system, but symbolically, the fact that you've got those two things happening at the same time is quite a big deal.
Thanks, Adam. Glad to say you'll be back in an hour to talk a bit more. Thank you.
Now, anyone approached by a lone police officer in Scotland will now be offered the chance to speak with control room staff to check their identity.
Yes, this new system's been introduced in the wake, of course, of the murder of Sarah Everard by a serving Metropolitan Police officer. Helena Wilkinson has got more details.
When Wayne Couzens kidnapped, raped and murdered Sarah Everard, he was a serving Metropolitan Police officer. He used his position to trick Sarah into a car he'd hired by showing her his warrant card and falsely arresting her. After he was sent to prison for life, the Met Commissioner spoke outside the Old Bailey.
This man has brought shame on the Met. Speaking frankly, as an organisation, we have been rocked. I absolutely know that there are those who feel their trust in us is shaken.
Police forces across the country are now looking at ways to reassure the public and restore trust. The Metropolitan Police said people stopped by a lone plainclothes officer should challenge their legitimacy, but many wonder why it should be up to the public to ask the questions. Police Scotland has now issued new advice for its force. Under the new process, if a lone officer approaches a member of the public, they will proactively offer an identity check. The officer's personal radio will be put on loudspeaker, allowing control room staff to confirm they are who they say they are. And if a lone officer becomes involved in an incident, they will call 999 and allow the member of the public to speak directly to control room staff. Police Scotland said the force recognised the understandable public concern about the horrendous murder of Sarah Everard, and the onus was on them to provide reassurance to women in particular. Helena Wilkinson, BBC News.
Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, has asked for an urgent meeting with the Metropolitan Police to discuss how Wayne Couzens was deployed as an armed officer at Parliament. The force has confirmed that Sarah Everard's killer had worked at Westminster 5 times last year. Sir Lindsay said that security was his number one priority and that it raised questions about police vetting procedures.
A fire has destroyed or damaged more than 200 homes and businesses and injured 4 people on a tourist resort off the coast of Honduras. The Honduran Air Force dropped water on the island of Guanaja to contain the blaze, which is now under control. The island is popular with scuba divers because of its coral reef.
Now, an erupting volcano on La Palma in the Canary Islands has blown open 2 more vents. This footage was filmed overnight. It shows streaks of molten rock erupting from the new openings.
Officials said the volcano was sending gas and ash for nearly 4 miles into the air, and before night fell, our correspondent Dan Johnson sent this report.
It seems like every day this volcano is producing more and more lava. There are new vents opening up, new ways for the lava to escape, and that means even more lava flowing downhill, putting even more homes and villages at risk. More than 1,000 properties have been destroyed now, and this is in the area that has been evacuated. So there are homes here where people haven't been able to get back for more than a week now. People wondering whether they'll ever be able to come back and live here, because nobody knows how long this volcano will keep erupting. You can see the sort of ash that has spread right across this area. It's really thick, coarse stuff that covers absolutely everything. At times you can feel it in the air, you can taste it, but it all depends on the changing wind direction, which areas are under threat and which areas are taking the gases that are escaping from there, and also down at the sea as well, because where the lava hits the water, there is another potential for toxic gases there. You can see how powerful that volcano is, how much lava and smoke is continually being produced day and night. This has gone on, and people are wondering how much more is there to come. The experts think this could last for weeks or potentially months more.
Let's go live there right now. This is the scene that you can see as the volcano continues to erupt on the island of La Palma. I don't know if you can hear it. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment. Let's have a listen in. You can hear the noise of what's happening. And as Dan was saying there, the volcano has blown 2 more vents, 2 more fissures. So lava, as you can see, coming up and going in different directions at the moment. As Dan was saying, residents have been urged to remain indoors, wear face masks and eye protection because of the heavy falls of volcanic ash.
Astonishing, isn't it? It's been a couple of weeks now that it's been spewing from that volcano. 6,000 people evacuated, 400 tourists taken off La Palma and taken to Tenerife. It's destroyed villages, schools, hundreds of homes, and as Dan was saying, it's the molten lava has now reached the sea. It took 10 days to get down to the coast, but just astonishing.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.